In this video, I had the chance to talk to the founder of SubmitHub, Jason Grishkoff. I might be saying that wrong. But SubmitHub is a service that connects artists and curators like playlisters on Spotify, blogs, influencers on Instagram, stuff like that, to pitch the music in a very streamlined way. There's free ways to do it, and there's a very cheap option to kind of pay the curators for their time. But SubmitHub brings those people together and makes it all possible. So in this video, we talk about how artists can maximize their chance of success on the platform, why the platform was originally created, and just a lot of cool stuff that I think you'll be interested in hearing. So anyways, without further ado, let's get to the video. Enjoy.
Wow. Okay, a couple paragraphs about me.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. Well, I'm coming to you live from South Africa. I suppose it's not live. I'm coming to you pre-recorded from South Africa. And I grew up here, but I spent 16 years in the States. Went to university down in San Diego, did some work out in DC, and then I ended up at Google in San Francisco for 3 years, which was kind of the pinnacle of my professional working career. And that was quite a rad job to have. Yeah. One of the reasons I think I got hired, well, there were two reasons. Number one, the job I was going for was like really niche, executive compensation. Not many people did that. And so, yeah. It's not like I had a lot of competition. And so the second thing, which is actually what I think, weeded me out from the other 20 people competing for the job, was I had a music blog called Indie Shuffle, which I had started while I was living in DC. And the people at Google thought that was really cool. In fact, a lot of the people who were interviewing me, 3 of them were on their way to Coachella later that afternoon. And so for them, when I was like, oh yeah, I run an indie music blog, and they're like, oh, dope, who should we check out? I was like, okay, cool, well, you got to check out this, this, and this. And so that music blog and the niche experience I had ended up meaning that I got a job at Google, which was kind of rad. Yeah. I worked there from 2010 until 2013. And the whole time I was there, my blog, Indie Shuffle, was growing and growing and growing and growing. And by the time 2013 came along, I think that was kind of the pinnacle of independent publishing on the internet, not just in the music industry, but across everything, right? Yeah. Like Facebook had not consolidated advertising. They hadn't figured it out yet. Instagram barely existed. If you were an independent publisher on the internet, you were making ad money. Everyone was switching over from the newspaper, right? And they were selling at newspaper rates, which were way overcharged. And so I ended up signing this deal with a company called Spin Magazine. They were going to give me $180,000 a year to have complete control of Indie Shuffle's advertising. And I was like, peace out, Google, right?
Yeah. It's like you've made it.
So Google was the sweetest job you could ever have. Yeah. But I mean, I still had to wake up in the morning, show up at work, do the stuff I was told to do, go through performance reviews, deal with workplace politics. And I just had this golden ticket to not do it anymore. So I did what any 26-year-old would do, 27. I quit Google and I went to Amsterdam to get high for a couple months. Like I booked an Airbnb. I was like, I'm just going to code on Indie Shuffle, bro. And I convinced a friend of mine that he should also quit Google, which set him on a whole different roller coaster ride. But anyway, we marched off, left San Francisco and moved to Europe. And I spent 8 months up there, then came down to South Africa when it started to get cold. And it was my first time coming back to South Africa as a grown-up to actually live here. And I fell in love with it. Made a bunch of friends really quickly, found a really cool co-working space, and it was just awesome. And 7 years later, I'm stuck down here. That's the brief history. Along the way, I started a website called SubmitHub, which was directly related to Indie Shuffle. It was intended to solve a problem that Indie Shuffle had in around 2015. We were getting 300 email pitches a day, and I had to figure out a way around it. So that's where SubmitHub was born.
That's one of the the most interesting things that I've found about SubmitHub is that when I first heard of it as an artist, I was like, who's this random website that's trying to make money off me as an artist? And then over the years, especially now being on the curator side, it's such a practical solution to that problem because on my YouTube channel I get a lot of people saying, hey, can you listen to my song? and I do like weekly live stream things, but even on SubmitHub, it's kind of hard to keep track of. So I can't imagine how nuts it would be getting even 50 emails a day from random people with random links. So it's cool that it just started off as this kind of like, I have this insane problem that I need to solve for myself. And I would imagine you had no hopes of ever turning it into this essentially like massive artist tool, you know?
I didn't anticipate it, no. I mean, it was just going to be a cool little coding project on the side that would help Indie Shuffle. But I guess deep down, I was hoping it would turn into something, because Indie Shuffle was, I mean, the writing was on the wall at the time that as an independent publisher on the internet, like, your days are numbered.
Yeah.
I mean, thank goodness I'm not like a newspaper with hundreds of employees. But I mean, today you even see companies like Vice and Vox and all of these ones that are, you know, seemingly big and successful. They're laying off everyone because they can't generate the money they need to stay afloat. So you can imagine for a small music blog, it's not sustainable. So for me, SubmitHub was in a way a last-ditch attempt at retaining that freedom, so that I didn't have to come groveling back to Google and be like, it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the cool thing is that even if you left and failed, they probably think it was just like a super valuable experience. Because I'm a mechanical engineer by day, and it's common for people to come back, like they leave because they have a cool business idea, they try it and fail, and employers find that more valuable because like they have all this business experience, and it's a different world when you're trying to make it on your own, you know, like everything falls on you. So those skills are incredibly valuable to an employer, but it's good that you managed to not have to do that, of course, with SubmitHub.
Yeah, so far.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as we pointed out early on, I'm still 34. I've got plenty of professional career time ahead of me. So
right. So
let's see how this roller coaster ride goes.
Yeah. So in terms of like your day to day, like how much time does SubmitHub consume? I see you on like the blogger chat portal. I see you on the support chat portal, like all throughout the day. And but on like the development side, does it still consume much time for you, or does it kind of run itself?
Tons. Too much time is probably the conversation I was having with my wife earlier today.
Yeah, because you just had a kid recently, in the last couple of years.
I've got two young kids. Yeah, I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old, and so my breaks from work are not really breaks, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm not working, I'm dealing with the kids, and sometimes that's fun, but oftentimes it's not. Not to say it's not fun. It's just it can be a little tedious at times.
Yeah.
So I try to spend as much time as I can coding on a daily basis. I reckon I spend half of my day on that, probably doing about 9 to 10 hours of work on a weekday. And so probably 4 to 5 hours of that are going into code, and then 4 or 5 hours into customer support, and then working with the team. There's 4 other team members on SubmitHub now. So we're kind of getting a feel for how that dynamic works, and it's a bit new because up until now it's almost been like me and Dylan just running this. I got really lucky with Dylan. I think you've probably interacted with him a couple times, but he's really smart and a self-starter, and he's just been able to get things running by himself. But for both of us, we found we're getting distracted from what we do well. In my case, that's like coding and building the product. So we brought on 2 more people, and that's got its own growing pains of like, you know, getting them up to speed and you know, creating that trust and making sure that we understand how things all work. So that I think takes up the other half of my day at this point. But coding is still the best for me. I enjoy it the most.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So what I don't know if you get a chance to check out my channel, but one of the main things I talk about is music marketing for artists, and I specifically focus on Facebook ads, which I usually recommend as like the #1 tool for an artist to promote their music. But what I do tell people is that they should allocate 10% of their budget for SubmitHub credits, and the reason is because you know, I found that like, I guess specifically talking about like Spotify playlists, the data you get from playlists, you usually get a lot of streams, but you don't get as much engagement as if you're sending fans directly to a song. But I notice a lot of artists when I recommend SubmitHub, like I tell them like avoid, I don't want to name drop a bunch of services, but I tell them avoid these and avoid like playlist pitching companies. Just use SubmitHub. And a lot of artists will tell me like, I never got great results with it. I feel like it's just a scam or whatever. And I've had great results with my music on SubmitHub. What do you, I think the people that are having bad results are probably just doing some stuff wrong. So in your experience, you obviously have much more than me seeing people submit to you, but what's like the number one thing that you feel artists are just wasting their submissions and money on when they pitch to Indie Shuffle, for example?
Pitching the Indie Shuffle is a bit of a pipe dream. We've got a 2% approval rate. So I think if you're going to send to us, you got to have your expectations in the right place and realize that we're getting 100 submissions that day and we're going to blog 2 or 3 of them. So your odds of getting approved are pretty slim. Backing up a bit, I think the response that you see is varied, right? For some people, they say, no, I've had some success. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes this does and that. Other artists you'll see go, man, that was the biggest waste of money ever. It was a total scam.
Yeah.
There's so many factors involved. It begins with your song, right? Not all songs are created equal. Some people make better songs than others. In 2020, I would say that 95% plus of the songs going through SubmitHub are properly mixed, properly produced, and high quality. So just having a song that was done well is not going to help you. I often see artists go, my song was mixed by so-and-so and produced by this guy, and how could you decline that person? It basically means you hate their work. And your song might sound really technically good, but it has to have that je ne sais quoi, that magical thing that just speaks to listeners, right? So that's step one, and that magical thing is impossible. If we all knew how to do it, we wouldn't be in this situation. We'd be like those guys who write Taylor Swift songs, right? They know how to do it.
Exactly.
We don't know how to do it. It takes a lot of skill, and very few people have figured it out throughout the history of humankind. So that's one of the first things. And then the second one comes down to targeting and who you're sending your song to. And I think a big mistake that a lot of people make when they come onto SubmitHub is to use a Counter-Strike reference, spray and pray, right? And then on the site, they pull the trigger and hope something hits. But the reality is by just loosely throwing your credits out there, you're probably wasting them because you're not paying attention to whether that curator is going to like your style of music or is even worth it. So the top tips I'm always going to give people is look at the genre match. It's a score that we create on SubmitHub based on that curator's history within your genre. So that's one of the easiest, most obvious signals you can look at. And anyone with a genre match score below 4, you should take a double look at, right?
Right.
I wouldn't say don't send to them. I'll give you an example. Indie Shuffle has a genre match of like 2.5 for indie rock. And you go, well, that's kind of weird. Indie Shuffle covers a shitload of indie rock. And it's actually because we get sent so much that we're so picky within the genre that we're actually less likely to approve it. So there are cases where it's not the be all and end all, but if someone's got a genre match score higher than 4 out of 5, that's a strong signal that they're probably worth sending to. And then the other one is to look at the approval percentages. So if you're sending to someone with a 1% approval rate, anticipate that you're probably not going to get approved, right? You'll often find a lot of the YouTube channels have really low approval percentages because they only upload 1 or 2 songs a week, right?
Right, and they have to actually create a video, which, it has rendering time. They might have to make a visualizer to fit their brand where, not to say that a blog doesn't take a lot of work either, but there's like additional rendering time that is expensive in terms of time.
There's more behind it on the YouTube side. On the flip side, you've got Spotify playlisters and now Instagram influencers on the site.
Yeah.
And they're much more likely to approve a lot of stuff because the barrier for sharing is much lower.
Yeah.
The sort of longevity behind it, especially with the influencers, it's a 24-hour story and it's gone, it's done. And they can go on sharing more stuff. Playlisters tend to have, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 playlists. And so they can share a lot more music as well.
Yeah, and
so as an artist,
when I started on the platform, I think I had one playlist that met the criteria, and I joined, and then like I had all these other playlists making, and I keep making new genres so that I can be able to share more music I like, because it's not just if the song's great. I have to have a playlist where it fits, otherwise it doesn't make sense. And so I'm constantly making new playlists and sharing them just so I can improve more music that I like. And I guess with a blog, you probably don't, like, you wouldn't cover like progressive metal on Indie Shuffle,
Probably not, but we've got a pretty broad range. I mean, no, that's it. There's 140 genres on SubmitHub, and I think we've only got 15 of them for Indie Shuffle. So actually, we are much smaller. We tend to focus a lot more on like down-tempo electronic, indie rock, and lo-fi steady beats. That's our niche right now. Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, we wouldn't really put a DJ into a progressive metal type of song on our homepage. It just doesn't really fit our vibe. Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, if you're an artist using SubmitHub, I always encourage folks to sort of set their expectations pretty low. It's a really efficient communication tool. It's way cheaper than hiring a publicist.
Yeah.
But given the amount of other artists on there competing against you, so to speak, it's an uphill battle, right? And for some people, it ends up having great results. But I think for a very not insignificant number of artists, it can be quite difficult. Yeah. But you know what? There's some other tools as well on SubmitHub. There's like the Hot or Not feature, which is actually free and fantastic for artists. So you get your song rated by other artists. And then the other one I wanted to point out, I mean, you mentioned 10% of the budget towards SubmitHub is good. And if an artist is doing that, I'm actually going to suggest that they should be focused on the blogs in the really good bloggers category, rather than looking at playlists. Because, I mean, you point out advertising can be pretty good for driving focused listeners to your songs.
Right.
Blogs might not have as many listeners, but when someone writes about your song, it shows up on Google, and it gives you some press to share with your existing fan base. It gives you some press to share with potential bookings. It's got a much longer lifespan, and it can't really be bought. Very few blogs out there sell placement, and any of them that do, you should probably steer clear of.
Yeah.
But if you get a nice write-up from a blog, it means that when someone searches your name, it's not just going to be a bunch of song aggregators showing up, like SoundCloud, Spotify. Heck, I even see artists who, like, their top result is their DistroKid page. That's lame, man. You want some content, right? You want someone writing about you and a story behind it, and those stories stick around. So, you get your blog post through Indie Shuffle and you go, whoop-de-doo, I got 10 plays. But, 3 years later, hey, the blog post is still up, and it still shows up when people search for you, and it's still there. So SubmitHub has a lot of different routes you can go. Personally, and I'm totally biased here as a blogger, but I think blogs are still totally cool and relevant and useful as an artist if utilized properly.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing I was going to bring up next, asking you which type of curator you thought was like the most valuable for artists. And I totally agree. I mean, obviously it depends on the circumstance of the artist, but in a lot of cases, I think blogs, because even if they might not have the biggest reach in terms of or getting streams, they usually have pretty diehard followings, like people that read them every day or every week. And it's much better to have that story that you can share with your fans, and also to attract those diehard fans that are going to not just like listen to your song and never hear you again, but listen to your song, add it to their library, add it to their own playlist, that they listen to every day, follow you, and then listen to every future song. Like, that's way more valuable than getting 100 streams from some random playlist. And
yep. I tend to be a little skeptical with the playlists because they, if I think about the way that I consume playlists, I rarely pay attention to what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
Put it on the background, hit play, and that's it. I've got no engagement with the artist. If you ask me, especially on these lo-fi beats types of playlists, if you ask me who I'm listening to, I'll be like, well, I recognize the song, but
you have no idea.
No clue who it is, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way I would show up at one of their concerts, not that anyone tours down in South Africa, but if I was living in the States, there's no way I would show up because I probably don't even recognize them. And so Spotify playlists are great for bumping up your streams, and you can make some money off of it too if you get into a few big enough ones. And of course, the holy grail I think so many artists are striving towards is getting placement in an editorial playlist.
Right.
But even that is a temporary blessing. Like you get your boost, they take you out and you're flat again. And so personally, I'm skeptical when it comes to the power of Spotify playlists. That's not to say they don't work for some people. But if I was an artist promoting my music, I would probably steer clear away from focusing on how many monthly listeners I have on Spotify. Right. There's the idea of generating 1,000 true fans, which I think is a much better tactic to pursue. And it sounds like one that you're sort of pushing people towards.
Yeah.
You want to find people who really engage with, know who you are, listen to music, want to follow your journey, and are going to be there to buy tickets when you show up in their city. And it's both incredibly difficult to accomplish, but also never been easier than in 2020.
Right.
Like the internet allows you to reach so many more people, but you have to fight through so much more noise. And so similarly, I suppose SubmitHub allows you to reach so many curators, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to walk away, hopefully, if your song doesn't suck, like building relationships with a handful of them. And that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people sort of get confused and they're like, I sent it out to 100 people. Surely at least 50 of them are going to share it. And it's like, no.
That's a pipe dream.
Yeah, like maybe 10 of them will share it, and 7 or 8 of those will actually move the needle a little bit. But hopefully you created some relationships in the process, people you can send your music to again, and their fan base as well. And you might walk away spending $100 on a campaign and come out of it with 50 new fans, but that's actually a pretty big win. If you can pull off 50 true fans for $100, you're probably doing something pretty well.
Yeah,
especially given how much choice there is today. Like, loyalty, who's going to be loyal? I don't know.
Yeah, so
you're just moving on to the next thing,
right? You
right?
brought up like one awesome thing that I bring up a ton on my YouTube channel. When you started off saying that you're skeptical about the playlist because of how you consume them, and I've been saying this for like all of this year, like on probably a dozen videos, that playlist listeners are not your fans. Like they might rack up your monthly listener count, but most people, they just click a song and listen through a playlist, and they might never even look at their phone because they're working out or working or whatever. Yeah. And that's how I consume playlists. That's how you consume playlists. And you and I would assume are good indicators of like hardcore music fans. I mean, you run the biggest music fan like curation site out there, and I listen to a ton of music as an artist, and I'm always telling people that like playlists are good for kind of boosting your song. Like if you're already using Facebook ads, getting those extra streams in the first week with also having those actual people kind of like engaging with the song, those extra streams can help you trigger like an algorithmic playlist boost. But the nice thing with that kind of playlist activity is that it can last like a year versus like an editorial playlist or a user playlist. It's usually like a month. So the value of a playlist, it's completely different from the value of like sending people to your Spotify, just because of that way that playlists work. They're great at getting you super cheap streams and maybe even profit on the streams alone, but they're not so great at actually getting followers and actual fans that will like buy your t-shirt or come to your show or whatever.
I think I gotta agree. I mean, there's some playlists I love, and I'm sure those artists are making, $10, $15, $20 a month from it. But
yeah,
like, I mean, it's not your true fan. Like
about $10, $15 a month,
Different strokes for different folks, right? Some people are very fixated on those numbers.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are actually a lot of people making a living from their Spotify streams more than ever. But at the same time, that the fraction or the percentage of actual artists out there doing that is still quite difficult, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to pull numbers out of a hat, I would say probably 3 to 4% of artists out there are generating enough income on Spotify to pay rent.
Yeah, and like I have,
and that's maybe generous.
I made
but
a
that
little
means 97% are
spreadsheet,
not.
and you need like 350,000 streams a month to make federal United States minimum wage. So that's.
But there's a lot of people doing that, right? There are a lot of people
yeah.
doing that, but 97 to 98% of artists are not doing it.
Yeah.
And many of them are focused on trying to accomplish it, when in reality it's going to be difficult, if not ephemeral, so to speak. Like you hit your numbers, and then as soon as someone pulls you from their big playlist, it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
So most of those artists that I know who are doing that released really great albums, generated a huge blog coverage wave from it that lasted. As a result of their blog coverage wave, they charted on Hype Machine, and the Spotify editorial folks started to pick it up. And then they put it in more of their long-term editorial playlists, because there's like ones that have a much higher turnover, and then there's some where they just sort of like set it and forget it.
Yeah. Right.
And I've got access to a few artist dashboards from artists who have made it, so to speak, where they're earning like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month from streams. And it's been 2 to 3 years of consistently sort of the same playlists and the same things generating it for them. And that's,
wow.
It's rare, but they have pulled off something really special, and they created a sound and an album that resonated with enough people that they were able to generate the fan base. It's hard, man. And most of the artists I can think of did that before 2020.
Yeah,
like it's harder today, right? And I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Back in 2015 or 2016, if you were savvy, you could hop on here, get a whole bunch of blog coverage. Man, if you were using SubmitHub back in 2016, 2017, you were probably seeing the needle move more than you would today, right?
Yeah, I like being a being on the platform as like accepting submissions. I've only been doing it for a couple months, and at first it was like, my perspective has changed on what it is, because it's not only like someone has to have a great song, they have to fit the playlist, but it's also, as you said earlier, like people are competing against each other. So the more people submit, like I don't want to add 50 independent or like small artists to a playlist, because then it's like no one knows any of the songs in the playlist, and that kind of diminishes the value of it. And so in a way, you're kind of like competing artists against each other. Not SubmitHub, but like the artists are like competing against each other. So if in 2015, jumping on SubmitHub as an artist, like you wouldn't be getting these 10% approval ratings on average. You might get a lot higher, I would think.
Actually, it was closer to 10% still.
Okay, yeah. So I guess that's good. So that means the curators were.
It's at an all-time high right now. It's at 13%, and I think a lot of that's actually been driven up by the Instagram influencers, who tend to approve a lot more.
Yeah.
The blogs are still notoriously picky, and if I were to rank it, I would say like YouTube channels, most picky, blogs, Spotify influencers, something like that. It's difficult, and it's become more and more and more and more difficult. The more internet savvy everyone becomes, and the more available all of these resources are, it means the more people you're competing against. And it's not just about getting your music out there, but I mean, creating music has never been easier, and mixing, mastering, and releasing a great song has never been easier. So, flashback 20 years ago, if you wanted to release a song, you had to have a record label who could help distribute that song for you and get it on all these things, and God knows how the internet works, any of that stuff. And today it's just like, anyone can just go sign up on DistroKid, put their song on, boom, it's on all platforms, use SubmitHub, spend $100, done. Right. And so, I mean, SubmitHub exists not because the concept was, we should find a way to take money from artists. It was more like, whoa, as curators, we love listening to music and we want to share it, but holy shit, there's a lot of you right now.
Yeah.
Like ease off. And so the reason SubmitHub works is because of that, the premium credits and that little bit of money. It justifies the time spent as a curator. You're going, there's a balance. I don't want to take a bunch of money from artists. I'm doing this for the love of it, but at the same time, you can't expect me to sit down for 3 hours a day, every day, outside of my job, and deal with this shit. So there's two sides to a coin, and I think for an artist it's very frustrating, and you've put so much love and work into your song, and you just want people to hear it and listen to it. and then you send your song out to the big bad curators and they shit all over it with their lack of expertise, because most of them actually don't have any technical background. They just love music, right?
Yeah.
They just listen to lots of it, but when it comes to like picking apart a song, they are helpless, myself included. And so that sucks from the artist perspective. And then from the curator's perspective, you're like, I just want to find good music and share it, but I'm bombarded. So it's a tricky thing to balance on SubmitHub. And like going back to the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned artists will come to you and some will say, I've had success, and others will be like, it's a total ripoff and a scam. And it's, man, I'm just on Twitter right now, like going back and forth with these guys who are poopy heads, but they're hell-bent on just ruining my day every day about, like, anytime someone tweets about SubmitHub, they'll jump in and just go on about like, oh, just wait for Jason to come and defend this with his shitty platform. I'm like, I just made a tool for people to connect, and it's got its ups and downs, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a much better solution than email. Like, a lot of the artists that are probably crapping on SubmitHub on Twitter, like, for example, they probably have never tried to go on Spotify, look up a playlist, try to dig up contact information about them, go onto email and write them a nice pitch, and then keep track of all that. Like, it takes a lot more work to pitch via email for the artists than it does for them to pitch via SubmitHub. And then it also takes way more work from the curator to accept those pitches and sort them on their end too. So all you're really doing is just, and for nothing. And instead of, like, with SubmitHub, you're getting a guaranteed feedback for that cost, assuming you choose the feedback option. And
you should always
never
choose the 90-second.
I tell people never choose the 90-second, which a lot of people do, which so choose the 90-second.
I've even when people choose that option, I even have a little pop-up that appears that says, "Don't choose this." It's like right there under you choose the button. It says, "Oh, I want 90-second," and then like a little red line that says, "Reconsider your choice." And people still do.
It's weird, but like the perspective on the curator side, it's like, well, you know, one, this person doesn't care to hear what I have to say. Two, I don't have to think about what I feel about the song because I don't have to write about it. And so it's like an easy mode for everyone, because the artist doesn't have to hear that hard feedback, but then the curator doesn't get to reconsider their decision. And I've had a lot of songs where I'm writing like, well, I like the production was good and the vocals were good, but I didn't really like the hook. And then like the chorus starts playing or a different part of the song, and I'm like, well, I like the hook, but I didn't like this hook. And then I'm like, I like this song. And then I delete that, and then I hit accept. You kind of convince yourself throughout the song, and I think it
happens.
Yeah, it's common. It's like every
the approval percentage between the two is big as well. 90-second has a 5% approval rate, and the feedback one has a 14% or something.
Oh, that's huge.
It's almost like you're 3 times more likely to be approved with a feedback option than a 90-second one. And it's for the exact reason you just described, where 90-second songs don't ask the blogger to be engaged at all. And as you point out, like, you start listening to a song and you start writing your feedback in real time. And when you hit those 90-second ones, you're like ready to write your feedback, and you don't have to. So then you open up Reddit. You're like, oh, what's going on over here? Oh, holy shit, Trump tweeted what? And then you're like, wait, what did I just listen to? I can't even remember. But if I can't remember, it probably wasn't that good. So bye-bye.
Yeah. And you did add some ways to make it a little more engaged. Like, you made it so you have to listen to the 90 seconds within the last 5 minutes or something.
Because I wanted to make sure that people didn't. What I noticed some curators doing is they would skip through all of their submissions, try to identify which ones are 90 seconds because it's not obvious.
Yeah.
And then they would play all of those in the background and go away for dinner or something, come back and just decline all of them. So had to stop that one real quick. So yeah, as you point out, with the 90-second ones, you have to make a decision pretty quickly. Otherwise, that timer sort of resets and you have to listen to it again.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of artists probably don't realize that almost everything you do on the platform it's designed around making sure that artists are getting their fair credit spent. Like, it's not designed to like milk artists. It's designed to make it as good as possible for artists through like that 90 seconds in the last 5 minutes. and through requiring feedback and rejecting all copy and pasting.
We spend a lot of time reviewing feedback as well, and giving tips on how to improve it. So anytime someone requests a cache out as a curator, we actually do a review of their feedback to make sure everything is looking so-so.
Yeah.
And we're not asking too much, but we're definitely looking for people who are giving generic responses or just being mean and that type of stuff, and then we'll coach them through it. So there's a lot of work that goes into balancing both of them, and nothing really stings me more than when someone calls it a scam. I'm always like, God damn it. And I try to engage and talk to them, and often they're actually receptive, and they're like, yeah, you know what, it's just tough, facing that much rejection, and I don't have a good solution for that. It's kind of the reality of it, but I think what ultimately what I'm hoping SubmitHub does is just make the process easy and transparent, so you know what you're getting up front. And one of the things you should know you're getting up front is a lot of rejection.
Yeah,
you're gonna get it. Even the best get it. And there's some pretty big artists who use SubmitHub. The Chainsmokers themselves use it. And when they put a song through there, they're going to hit #1 on the popular chart with like a 70% rejection rate.
Wow.
So like the best of the best will get a 30% approval rate. So even like and I mean, it's not shocking, right? Not everyone likes the Chainsmokers.
Right. Yeah,
and some people will just straight up reject them because they're the Chainsmokers.
Then they can go on their Twitter and say like, I rejected the Chainsmokers.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Like a bragging right.
But the bloggers also get really excited. You'll often see in the bloggers chat just people being like, "Yo, did anyone get a submission from so and so? I'm so stoked!" And I'll be like, "Who is that?"
Yeah,
I don't even know. And it just gets to the point of like, how many artists and how many niches, and like someone on Twitter today was complaining about how SubmitHub is all just commercial pop, and I was like, nah, it isn't. There's like 8 subgenres of metal.
Yeah,
and there's curators within it, and sure, you don't see those songs breaking into the popular chart, but did you expect them to?
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's not a niche or a market for it. So it's broad, man. In a way, it's like a subset of, you got your mom and your dad, you play your music for them, they love it. They'll tell you they love it, at least. But when you get on SubmitHub, it's your first time almost facing a broader audience, and really putting it in front of people who probably aren't going to like it, because that's just, like, go play your favorite songs for a random group of people, and most of them are going to be like, that's cool, but yo, you should check out this song, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
it's like when you excitedly show someone a YouTube channel and you're like, hold on, it's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming. Oh, and then as you're watching it, you're like, man, this was so much better when I watched it by myself. But in a way, jumping on SubmitHub is a bit like that as an artist. You're sending your song out there, you're throwing it into the gauntlet, and even if you do really well with your targeting, you're still just going to encounter a bunch of people who didn't like it.
Right.
And rather than focus on them, focus on the people who do like it. Or if no one's liking it on SubmitHub, either reconsider your song, or maybe just find a different audience. Like maybe it's just not on SubmitHub. Maybe you'll do better on Reddit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even on Facebook ads, it's common to there's a number called impressions, which I'm sure you're familiar with. How many times something's shown in like a search engine or whatever, and then there's clicks, which are people who go through and actually check out the song. You might, you're running ads and you're paying for impressions, but you might get down to like a 10-cent click rate or conversion on your song. But for every time someone clicks, you might have like 1,000 people who saw your ad and didn't click. And it's not that bad. It might be like 100 to 1 or 200 to 1. But that alone kind of shows you that even if you consider your song highly produced and very good, and people who like your music love it, you're still going to miss like 99% of the time, And it's the same for SubmitHub. And I guess would probably prevent...
Well, not 99. You're going to miss 87% of the time.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's not say 99, but it can be as difficult, and there are parallels to be drawn there. You're right.
Yeah, and it's that I think with SubmitHub it's probably better, one, because like there's people who are looking for new music. With Facebook ads, you might not be putting your song in front of people who are looking for new music. Like I'm on there because I want to help smaller artists get on my playlist and get streams. Like that's what I do on my YouTube channel. It's all about helping helping artists. So I want to find those songs that I like that fit the thing. But on Facebook, it's like you might hit some 15-year-old who's like, I'm about to go play basketball with my friends, and like, you know, it's a lot less specific, I think.
Yeah. And sometimes that makes it even harder on SubmitHub because you're just dealing with a bunch of people who are very particular about their music.
Right. Right.
Yeah, look, it's going to be 5 years old this year. It's gone through a lot. It's constantly changing, adapting. I'm still the developer on it, and I'm pretty much pushing updates every day.
Yeah.
So I hope it gets better and better. We've got some cool ideas for ways we can grow it in the future, and our goal here is to try and make it valuable for both sides. But I continually emphasize that we cannot promise success, and I totally understand that artists can do much better elsewhere. That's just the way, it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks, right? I mean, someone might blow up over here, and then you're like, well, I'm going to go do that, and you have no luck with that. So not everything's going to work the same for different people.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of artists for which SubmitHub has been great and has helped them, and they keep coming back to it. And then there are those Twitter trolls out there who tried it once, couldn't handle the rejection, and spend their days shitting all over me. And fair game to them. I'd like to see the product they can build.
Right.
But they're not gonna.
Well,
so
one thing I was wondering about SubmitHub is you coded it from scratch in like Node.js, right? Or you use like some library.
Yeah,
in
the stack is Node.js, MongoDB, and React. Okay. And it's all tied together with software called Meteor, which is basically just a platform that makes the communication between those easier. So they take care of, they use Node.js to pull from your database and bring it all to the front end. And they've got a couple different ways that you can pull your data. You can either do just straight up like instantaneous pulls from the database, but you can also open up a socket and monitor new stuff, which is how the chat rooms work. So you get sort of real-time updates back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool, and it's great because out of the box, you don't actually need to fiddle with that much. It just works. It just brings those three together. Yeah. So I don't need to understand much about setting up the Node server. Like I spend so much time with Indie Shuffle server side trying to figure out Nginx and Jesus, like all those configurations, and I don't have to do that anymore. Meteor just sort of takes care of it. So I spend most of my time either in MongoDB or React, and then Meteor has written some really easy code for me to just pull between the two. So
yeah. Are you 100% self-taught in programming? Because you didn't go to school for software.
100%,
right? 100%.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, everything you see on SubmitHub has sort of been coded from scratch, which is one of the cooler parts about doing it. Was I got to build it for this purpose, right? So it's completely built up from the ground with exactly this in mind.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's a beast. Like one day, ultimately, I'm going to have to bring in other developers, right? Because either the company's going to there's just going to be so much that I won't be able to keep up with it, or like at some point, I'm just going to burn myself out. And so one day I'm going to have to bring in more developers, and I cannot wrap my head around how that's going to work.
Yeah, I would imagine that since you started it from scratch for your needs, you didn't necessarily write the code in a super organized, commented manner that someone else could jump into.
It's very ad hoc, if you will. So I'll have an idea. I'll be like, oh shit, we should do this, or this needs to happen, or this. And I would say my code is pretty well written because I had been writing for, I've been playing around with Indie Shuffle's code for a while. So my code's not shit, but there's actually just so much of it. And the way it all interacts and works together, it's sometimes especially like the Spotify stuff, man, keeping track of playlist growth and listener data and all that shit. Like there's just so much. I'll look at my code and be like, wait, what's happening where? And why has that stopped working?
Because you have to integrate with the Spotify API. It's kind of like you have to work with
but their API only gives you so much information. So we got a whole bunch of other, like, where do your listener numbers come from? Huh?
How do you find out the estimated listeners on a track?
I don't think I should tell you.
Do you use like Chartmetric or something? Because they have an estimate tool for that too.
Their estimate was from SubmitHub.
Oh.
No, not really. So Chartmetric was basically looking at the discovered on section that used to be on each artist page, and it would show you how many listeners they have. So they brought on an intern to manually go and look at that data.
Ooh.
If you look at their stuff, it's actually pretty spotty and quite outdated.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, have they got data on your playlist?
They don't. It seems to only be large playlists that they have that data for.
Yeah, and maybe also playlists that you would find on SubmitHub, because SubmitHub published it, so they could easily just go and plug it into their database as well.
Huh.
They don't have a secret way of doing it. I do.
Okay. Are you keeping it a secret?
Yeah, sure. We have quite a few ways of doing it. One way is to actually ask artists who have been shared by playlists to give us insights into their Spotify data.
Okay.
So
yeah,
a month after being shared, we'll reach out to them and say, hey, how many plays did you get for that share? And they'll give us their data from their Spotify artist dashboard, and we'll give them some credits.
That's a super.
So that's
nice
one
way
technique we use. We've got three different sources of data. Some of it is non-public data that we shouldn't have, and then the other one is just really clever. But that one I'm not going to tell because other people could figure it out. But
yeah. Okay.
It's hard to know 100% for sure with those numbers. But what we're trying to do is paint an accurate picture of what an artist can anticipate if they do get picked up by the playlist.
Yeah.
And we often encounter a fair bit of frustration from playlisters because many of them do represent or work with artists and they do have access to the insights, and they can see that the numbers are maybe higher than what we're publishing. And usually the explanation is because they put their own artists in the top slots.
Of course, yeah.
For a longer period of time, but the artists from SubmitHub they put towards the end and they only share for a week or two. So the numbers we're trying to show are, I hope, reflective of what the average artist shared by a SubmitHub would experience on that playlist.
Yeah, in my experience, like the ones you have for my playlists have been very accurate, because what I do with mine is like I initially made all my playlists to promote my own music, and the way I did that is like I put usually my songs in the top 3, and then every 10 songs I have one of my songs, depending on the playlist. And then so I like when I look at my Spotify for artists, I can see at every point in the playlist like what's the drop off, and it's a good way of tracking like when I can kind of I don't like tell people what streams they could expect, but like I know if I put someone at slot 20 that my song at position 21 gets roughly this many streams, and every time I've looked at the SubmitHub data, it's been like, yeah, that's pretty much what I get. So I don't know if you
that's good to know.
Yeah, I don't know if you polled someone on like one of my playlists or with one of your secret methods, but it seems to do a pretty good job. So good job on that, I guess.
Yeah. Look, I really wish Spotify would just come out and give everyone those numbers, and I think it would solve a lot of their issues with payola and fake stuff going on. I know that they have on their end, they have access to data around how many streams each song is getting from each playlist in each position, but they also have some good ones that, for example, what percentage of the listeners are premium versus non-premium, and what percentage of the listeners come from this specific region versus that region. But there's some good techniques that we use for spotting fake playlisters when they apply. One dead giveaway tends to be if the artists in their playlist are getting all their streams from a few cities in the US. Believe it or not. Yeah, so you would think fake plays are actually coming from like Bangladesh or Egypt, but they're not. They're coming from Virginia, and they'll all like you'll open up the artist and you'll be like, wow, 7 of the artists in your playlist all have their number 1 city as Roanoke, Virginia. But this artist from Brazil, this one's from Australia, this one's from here. And it's like, pretty sure there's something shady going on. And I think it's actually because bots are actually pretty cheap from the States, from the Spotify standpoint. Yeah, they don't need to be from India because they're not real people. That's true, it's just set up on Amazon servers in various different places.
Man, that's nuts. Yeah, you wouldn't expect that as usually people talk about bots come from India or they come from like France or you don't say
So one thing I've seen people do is they will. Okay, so the way you can set up one of these fake networks, which I have not done, but I'm pretty sure this is how. There's a guy who told me this is how he did it. He went on Mechanical Turk, which is an Amazon service for hiring people for cheap.
Right.
And he set up a micro task where he created a page where people could connect their Spotify account. You might have encountered that if you ever use a service like SoundPlate where you follow to submit.
Yeah.
Those are trash because the playlists are full of people who don't actually listen. But the idea is that you connect with the Spotify button and now they've got your credentials, right? And so they can follow that playlist on your behalf and God knows what else they're going to do. This guy created a Mechanical Turk task and he basically said, I'll pay you 50 cents if you connect your Spotify here. And he got 500 people, Mechanical Turkers, to just log in and connect their account. Wow. And those people clearly didn't care too much, right? They just want 50 cents.
Yeah.
And now he's got all their authentication details. And so when he runs his scripts to like listen and follow and play and generate all this user data, rather than all coming from one account, which is a huge red flag from the botting side, he's actually he's cycling through like 500 unique listeners who all have real accounts from different areas. They all just happen to be listening. And so he was using Spotify's API, passing those credentials, playing the songs, and then coming back. And I
mean, as horrible as it is, like, that guy sounds, it's horrible as it is, that guy's super clever. Like, that's a very unique scam.
Yeah, what's his name? Shane Harris. I think he was part of Earmilk at one point. But he's a very clever publicist, and he's also got a technical background. So he whipped this up and coded it himself. Wow. And he went on an epic tweet storm where he basically laid out exactly, he was like, not saying I've done this, but hypothetically, here's how you do it. And then he wrote like, a step by step, and that was kind of his thing. And then a day later, he deleted it all. I guess, I don't know, but it was very clever. And it's actually a good way of, so I guess my point here is that what people assume to be botting is a bit more sophisticated in many cases. You'll probably still encounter lots of shit. Like if you ever find one where they're like, oh yeah, we'll get 500 people to follow you for $50.
Yeah.
Has something to do with that. But the fact that he was really clever in the way, he didn't go out and create a bunch of fake accounts himself. He got real people to connect their real accounts, many of which might have even been premium, and those people don't realize what they've just handed over. Right. They just don't get it. So anyway, we digress, but it's a vastly complicated web out there, and
yeah,
I have some confidence in our numbers, but I cannot sit here and tell you with 100% confidence that all of our playlisters are behaving, because it's next to impossible to prove.
Yeah.
In the very example I gave you, like, how do you bust that? As an outsider, you couldn't. Like if you're an artist, you log into the dashboard, you would see like the listeners are from all over the place. Spotify's paying you, right? Because they're going to pay you royalties on that. If they can't tell it's a bot,
they're getting paid for all this fake activity. So the artist, I mean, they might not realize it's fake, but in some circumstances, they might not necessarily care, especially if it's blended in with a whole bunch of real data. It's but
so it's tough to tell, man, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know.
I mean,
we're just trying to give the data.
I can say in like my experience, like being an artist and submitting on SubmitHub, like I've had some great experiences and I've had some bad experiences, like where I get put in a playlist and there's like 1,000 songs on it and I'm like song 999. But for every one of those, there's like, a lot more that are, they have like a playlist with 120 songs on it, which is a kind of a normal. That's a bigger side, but it's a normal playlist, and it's like songs 50, and it gets a good amount of streams. It's not like 1 million streams, but it's not like 5 streams. And every so often you get on one that's super good, top 10.
The data's all there. Before you send to them, it shows you on SubmitHub where they typically share and how many plays they get. So you can, before you even dive in, you can see like, oh, this guy always approves for a playlist with 500 tracks. Steer clear, right?
And I love the warnings that you guys give, like, often doesn't share to main channel, or has low engagement, or is like there's one that says like is slowly losing followers, might not have good engagement, or like is gaining followers too fast, might be using bots. And
that one has been really tricky, and I had to get rid of that one.
yeah, I saw it on mine for a bit, and I was like, what? Because I, you know.
So this is, we're trying to code as many solutions as we can here, and there's sketchy growth. Like there's normal growth, and then there's really fast growth.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain what the really fast growth is. And actually, it turns out these days, and by these days I mean within the last like 6 months, everyone has realized they should just be doing Instagram ads for their playlists. And so you do see a lot of guys growing very quickly, but it's seemingly legit. And
yeah, I mean, and that's an entirely legit way to grow a playlist, is just to run ads on it like you would a song. And
they're reinvesting their SubmitHub earnings into it. So they're like playing a net zero game here. Cool, I earned $100 this month. I'm just going to reinvest that into ads so that hopefully more people will submit to me next month because I look better. And it works. I mean, it does. You're generating plays for artists. They are real. I mean, they're using Facebook and Instagram ads. Maybe they're all from South America, but still, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so I ended up having to kind of get rid of that note because of the amount of times that people would come to me and be like, this is bullshit, man. Here's all my screenshots from my ad dashboard, and you're slandering me. We're going to sue you. And I was like, sue me? What are you going to sue me for?
I mean, when I saw that warning on mine, I was just like who, I mean, like, I guess it looks a little sketchy to an artist, but like I've submitted to people who have that warning because I guess I just understand that there's a million ways that you could have fast growth, whether it be ads or like they have a YouTube channel and they just shared their playlist, or to their Instagram account with 100,000 followers, they just shared a playlist. They might get a lot of growth. And I don't know, it never stood out to me as necessarily fake. I think a warning there would be good, but maybe not say like bots, maybe just say like is growing faster. But then, when you put it's tricky language, right? Because if you say they're growing really quickly, then maybe you're actually sending the signal that this is a great person you should send to.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but in a way that's, I mean, maybe that's not wrong. Maybe they are actually a really good person to send to because they are driving a lot of traffic to their playlist.
Yeah.